my passion as well to do the best service for my customers.
My calling in life at this stage in my life is to help protect buyers of airplanes, because when I saw this when I was running my previous charter management company, I saw how many people got burned buying airplanes, and I said, when I exit these businesses, that's what I want to do. In our industry, say if I hear someone has an off-market airplane, I just believe it's a phantom listing and it doesn't really exist.
Yeah.
And let's look at my closings this year.
Right.
Michelle, thank you so much for sitting down with me today. It was great running into you last night at the IATA NAFA reception.
Of course,
we're both here for the National Business Aviation Association conference. I thought this would be a good time for us to chat about all things buying airplanes.
I would love to. Thank you so much for inviting me to join you on this.
Yeah, so just for our listeners, so they know who we are, I'm Denise Wilson with the Jet Agent. I help buyers and sellers primarily of citations. Yeah. And you are?
And I'm Michelle Hoover of Global Elite Aviation. And just like you specialize in citations, we actually specialize in the Honda Jet.
Great. So we have a lot in common because we help a lot of times because of the airplanes that we're dealing in. We're dealing with first-time buyers and sellers of aircraft.
Yes, frequently.
Aircraft. Well, since we're here in Vegas and at the largest aviation convention in the world, maybe it would be a good idea to first talk about why people use business aviation and how it helps their businesses.
I think that's a great idea.
Okay. All right, great. Well, I know a lot of people have on their mind now that we're running into Q4.
I know.
How do we get an airplane, get it into service before the end of the year, and primarily because of the tax benefits? You want to talk a little bit about maybe what happened July 4th?
Yes. So thank you for that that lead up, because yes, Q4 is here. We are officially in Q4, and this is when we, as you know, notoriously find the most amount of buyers looking to purchase a business aircraft by the end of the year and put it into service, like you said, in order to take advantage of the 100% bonus depreciation that's in effect. It hasn't been in effect for a couple of years now, right?
Yeah,
it's been a couple of years.
Yeah.
So it's finally back, and buyers are excited to take advantage of 100% write-off for their business tool, because as we know, primarily people do buy airplanes to use for business, to grow their business and to help them to be more efficient in their business and in their personal lives as well. But it is often very much about a business expense and a business tool. So yes, we've seen a good amount of interest. But like you said, from July 4th when it passed, our phones have been ringing a lot more than maybe that time last year. It was more, like you said, July 4th is still a little bit of the slower time, but I did see an uptake in business when the bonus depreciation passed. And now that we are officially in Q4, yes, we are busy. Buyers are calling, and we've actually acquired a couple more listings of owners who are ready to sell, because they know that this is the time that a lot of buyers are going to be active.
A lot of times when I'm talking to people this time of year, I always like to try to understand why they're buying a jet. And a lot of times I hear, obviously, there's some huge tax benefits, right? You can deduct 100% of the purchase of the aircraft in 2025 from your business tax returns, if you can use that asset, in business this year, and you can close by December 31st to get that flight in. But what's interesting to me is when I talk to buyers about how they use their airplanes to further their business. So obviously there's that financial aspect, which is huge, right?
Right.
Spend all that
is huge.
Spend all that money to the IRS, or
Yes.
go put it in an asset, a tool for your business.
Yes.
But, I just recently acquired a CJ3 Plus for a client who had been expanding his business. He had initially, in the area that he's in, there's no airline service at his local airport.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, that's a big one.
No airline service. So he has to drive an hour to the nearest place to get airline service. But he's expanded, and I think he has something like 17 locations now throughout the southeast and eastern United States. And the only way that he can get his team there and back in the same day is by having a private jet.
Yes, absolutely.
A business jet, a private jet, same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We see that a lot. I see a lot of like car dealers are a big one. Of course, Honda. We specialize in Honda Jet. We often find a lot of Honda car dealers are interested in the Honda Jet just because they're loyal to the Honda brand. So that's fun. But yes, we do see that's a popular buyer is a car dealer who has 37 locations across the country, and they want to actually be able to go visit a large amount of their dealerships in 1 or 2 days and be home for dinner with the family. So they are able to do that with their private business jet versus trying to track down airlines and go through TSA and wait for the flight that's delayed. And so they are
and
absolutely
go through hubs and wait for that.
Exactly, and connections. And so no, the airplane is a tool. Like I said, it's a business tool. And often they're actually also conducting business while on the aircraft. So if they're going to, let's say, try to see 7 of their dealerships in one day, if they bring their team of, their executive team with them on the aircraft, then they're actually able to hold meetings during those flights from each location.
It's funny that you mentioned that. I one time was flying on an airline flight, and I overheard a private equity team talking about a deal that they were flying to go do on that airplane, and I was thinking, do you have any idea of right. If this got out, that would have been a perfect group to be flying on a business jet because corporate espionage is a thing.
Yes,
and especially if you're flying someplace doing an IPO or whatever else, you can't have that information out there.
No, it's like that's proprietary. So.
Yeah.
No, that's a great point. I mean, you shouldn't be having business meetings like that on a large airliner or in the middle of an airport. So that's why so it's definitely not a good idea. So that's why the business jet is perfect. You can go right through the FBO. They have private rooms as well at the FBO for you to conduct meetings while you're waiting or whatever for a fuel stop or something, and then on the airplane itself. And I'm just going to plug the Honda Jet since I'm here. The Honda Jet is extremely quiet in flight as well. So it is actually you're able to actually hold a meeting and talk to each other. It's the 4-club configuration, and if there's 4 people sitting there, even the side-facing seat, you can still all hear each other, and it's perfectly desirable to have a business conversation on the airplane.
Well, I'm going to plug then my favorite airplanes,
yes,
which are the Textron products, the Citations.
Yes.
Primarily just because I've been flying them since, about 25 years now. But that's I feel old having said that number out loud. But plugging that airplane because, you're normally at, 40 to 45,000 feet. You're flying above the airliners. You're flying well above the weather.
Yes.
And a lot of times it can be a lot more comfortable flying on a business, corporate jet than it is flying on the airliners.
Absolutely.
So.
I completely agree. Yeah, no, both of our airplanes are top of their class, and obviously we are fans.
So what would you advise someone to do that's looking to buy an aircraft before the end of the year and they want to take advantage of this huge tax benefit and bonus depreciation?
Yeah, so there are, to buy an airplane, especially as you mentioned, a first-time buyer, there's a number of things that we would advise to put in place during this process of purchasing an airplane. So we were talking about it actually yesterday at the IATA meeting, and it's really important for a first-time buyer or even not a first-time buyer to essentially lay out all of the steps that need to happen in the right time. As you mentioned, we already are in, I think it's October 15th tomorrow or something. So we're already halfway through October. And if you want to buy this by the end of the year, there's a couple things you need to step in place right away. I would advise, so first you engage a broker, but there's the step of engaging an attorney to make sure that you're looking at all of the aspects of your business. And I would also advise a tax attorney, especially with the bonus depreciation, but it's just in general to make sure you're purchasing the airplane and doing that flight, as you mentioned, in the correct way to be able to take advantage of the bonus depreciation. And these people also are busy, so I would advise to get those in place right now. One thing that can hold up a purchase is a pre-purchase inspection or a pre-buy inspection, and those are time sensitive due to the shop's availability. So that is also something to look into arranging ahead of time, because you are going to have to buy this airplane and put it into and close on it and then put it into service before the end of the year, and you're at the mercy of the pre-buy inspection facilities availability to inspect your airplane before you actually decide to close on it. But I think what we're also here to talk about today is why you would engage with us. So we specialize in how to bring you to look at the entire market of what is available to purchase and buy the aircraft that meets all of your missions and needs as correctly as possible. So I've seen many buyers buy the wrong airplane, and they bought it because they either were too late.
Their buddy.
Yes, or
Their buddy has this airplane, and their buddy said it's the perfect airplane, and so they went and bought the same airplane.
Exactly. Their buddy bought it, or they heard, or they saw something on the internet about it, or they didn't do their homework as well, and they just got distracted by the shiny paint job or something and thought this was the right airplane, but they really didn't look into, so what is this airplane's specifications? So what is the range? How many seats? What's the fuel burn? Like what is the cost of operating this airplane? So we've seen many times people make the wrong decision if they didn't have a trusted advisor on that they engaged with to actually find them the right aircraft, whether on or off market. And I know you've done a lot of off market deals lately where you've been able to find an airplane for your client that they would have never been able to find had they not engaged you because it was not on the market for sale. So everyone can go to controller.com or aircraftexchange.com or Google, but they don't know. They don't have the tools that we have to find an airplane. Not every buyer out there has paid for JetNet or Amstat to be able to see airplanes, and even then, they're not on the market. So it's like a wild goose chase trying to understand, well, is this for sale or not? But we know because we have the connection.
Let's unpack this a little bit, right? So at first glance, it looks like a pretty onerous process to buy a jet. There's a lot of pieces you just threw out there, right?
Right.
And we talked about this earlier in that, buying an aircraft, especially for the first time, there are some hidden pitfalls. First of all, there's all the great things, right, that come along with buying an aircraft. But it's not something for the uninitiated. It's not like going to the local dealership, the car dealership lot, and going online and researching airplanes. A lot of the times online, the information that you see online isn't accurate.
Yes.
You find range information, you might find operating cost information, and it's not accurate.
Yeah.
And so for the vast majority of first-time buyers, having someone on your side who's representing you and helping guide you through the process of determining which airplanes meet your mission, what the acquisition cost is going to be, what the actual operating cost is going to be, and then opening the door to all of the available airplanes, not just the ones that you see that advertised online. Because I think we were talking about this earlier, maybe 60% of the airplanes that are transacting are ones that you can find online, but there's another 40% of airplanes that only those highly connected like us that have a good network that are in this industry day in and day out, where we know who's selling and who's buying and how to access those airplanes. So let's unpack this acquisition consultant thing and the brokerage part a little bit,
sure,
so that people really understand what it is. And so before we dive into that, I want to give an example, though, too, of, I had someone that came to me recently that bought an airplane, did not hire an acquisition consultant. They actually bought the airplane 3 years ago.
Okay.
And they bought the airplane because someone had told them they could buy the airplane, put it in charter, and make a bunch of money.
I know where this is.
I'm signed because how many times have we heard the same story?
Oh, man.
Okay, so Michelle, I think you know this, but one of my past careers was I had my own charter management company.
Yes.
I ran that for 14 years, so I'm intimately familiar with the financials of a charter operation for both parties, for the aircraft owner and for the charter company.
Right.
And I know what you can and cannot do. And when someone promises that you can buy an airplane, take the bonus depreciation, put the airplane in charter, and make a profit, no.
No.
The piper always gets paid at the end. Okay, so I had someone contact me over the summer and said, hey, so we bought this airplane.
Yeah.
And they told me what they bought, and immediately I knew they overpaid by about $900,000, first of all.
Yep.
Proper due diligence wasn't done. They thought the selling broker was actually representing them.
Oh, interesting.
Because how do you know?
I didn't know any better.
You find an
Right.
ad online, you call, the broker's answering, and the broker's so helpful in giving you information.
Right.
And so you think they're there, they're your friend, you think they're there helping you.
Right.
But actually that person is hired by the seller of the airplane.
Right.
And in our industry, it's a very unique industry in that there's no oversight, no regulation, no certifications, et cetera, to do what we do in our industry. If you're going to cut someone's hair, you need a cosmetology license, right?
Right.
You're going to sell a house, obviously. There's real estate licenses and things of that nature.
If you're an attorney, you need to pass the bar. Like, right.
Buy and sell airplanes, there is nothing.
There's no regulations in our industry.
So you could be talking to somebody on the other side of that call when they're telling you about the airplane. You could be talking to somebody that's reading off a piece of paper and they really have no idea what that airplane is equipped like, right? So it's tricky buying an airplane. So I always, obviously, my calling in life at this stage in my life is to help protect buyers of airplanes. Because when I saw this when I was running my previous charter management company, I saw how many people got burned buying airplanes. And I said, when I exit these businesses, that's what I want to do. I want to first try to lobby to change the system,
right,
which I've been trying and hitting my head against the wall on. So I wrote a book to the Insider's Guide to Buying and Selling Jets to hopefully at least get the word out about this.
And that's been very successful, by the way.
Thank you. It was a fun little project.
Yes.
But then, in my day-to-day, this is what I'm trying to advocate for buyers so that they are protected in this process. They get the best deal possible, a great pedigree airplane, and come out of the process confident knowing that they got a fantastic airplane and they didn't get taken advantage of.
Right.
So I'll come back to this poor aircraft owner. About 300 hours after, about 4 or 5 months after buying this airplane, they put about 300 hours on this airplane. They had a catastrophic engine failure where a component failed inside of the engine. They didn't have an engine program on the airplane. So that airplane then has been down for about 2.5 years.
Oh, wow.
While they're trying to figure out how to extract themselves from the situation, because at this point, it's about $1 million for an engine overhaul, and the plane's only worth maybe $1.9 million.
All right, because they overpaid and they didn't go on an engine program.
Yeah.
And they didn't understand their costs.
Yeah. So unfortunately, there's a lot of stories like this. I mean, have you had experiences like this with a buyer or a seller where they got themselves into a situation where if they just had representation, maybe they would have been protected?
Yes. No, in fact, I have. And I think I was, while you were talking, I was just thinking, this industry of ours is arguably a little bit of the Wild West sometimes, and it isn't regulated. And I think that, you and I have known each other for a while now, and I think we both, I at least feel that we both have strong integrity, and I think we both founded our companies based on that integrity and that loyalty to the customer and to the buyer and the seller and to our customers, really. And I think that's, you touched on it, and I'll just reiterate that my passion as well is to do the best service for my customers so that they're buying the right airplane. I actually like to look at my position as sales, yes, we are in sales, but I don't sales is sometimes a word that's tossed around a little bit, and it's got, like I'm selling you something. I'm not trying to sell you something. I'm trying to be your trusted advisor and give you all of the information and the knowledge that I have that you don't have, and then give you the tools to make the best informed decision on your own. So I'm not trying to push you into anything, but I'm trying to be your trusted advisor and give you all of the information that maybe someone, again, who isn't loyal to, who's maybe has their own intentions or something, and not having your best interest in mind. So I think that you and I both agree and founded our companies, like I said, on kind of a philosophy of integrity and loyalty to the customer. But to answer your question, yes, I've seen so many customers buy the wrong airplane because they didn't do their homework. They didn't hire an acquisition agent that is trustworthy and has integrity and has their best interest in mind. And they made it, we were joking, they went on Google or they saw an ad or their buddy said this is the right thing, then they just didn't put the actual they didn't do their due diligence, and turns out a year later, right, they're, like you said, that your example, they're out several $100,000 or maybe even millions of dollars because they bought too expensive, or they didn't know to go on programs, or they bought an airplane that had like damage history or something, and they go to sell and they didn't realize that they overpaid, and then now they're in the bottom of the market because they didn't know what damage history was, or they bought an airplane that just didn't fit their needs and missions. So because they didn't hire someone to be their trusted advisor, and that is the job that you and I are so passionate about, is helping them, to guide them really, instead of sell them on something, guide them into making their informed decision.
So how does someone, though, that knows nothing about aviation, how do they find someone that they trust?
That's a great question. We were talking about that yesterday. I'm not that old, but I'm not that young. But this new Chat GPT stuff and all the AI stuff, we were talking about that yesterday at the IATA meeting. It did come up a couple times that, how do we make sure that when someone Googles, how to buy an airplane, we come up. And so we are trying to do some SEO stuff with the websites so that we come up at a first search of, buy a Honda Jet, sell a Honda Jet. That's our particular. But I think, I guess the AI thing is coming, and we need to kind of wrap our heads around how to utilize that tool, I guess, better. I would also say, networking and word of mouth. I mean, I think hopefully, I don't know about you, but in our business, we sell a Honda Jet to someone, and then we retain that relationship with them immediately. So it's like the seller is our customer, and we're loyal to the seller. But as soon as the buyer actually closes on the airplane, I am immediately, that's my new customer. And so whatever they need, whether it be, help, figuring out what to do next with the airplane, how to put it into maybe charter, or if they need a pilot, or if they need, help with anything with the airplane, I'm there to assist them. And then hopefully, what I was going to say is that relationship and that helpfulness that we offer is translated, so that maybe if they bought an airplane, and then they're going to tell their buddies, I bought this airplane and I worked with this great company to buy this, and then hopefully that's going to translate. So networking and
word of mouth,
and it is a small industry, so it is a small industry, and it's an even smaller community of the airplanes that you and I both specialize in, our different airplanes. So hopefully there is that word of mouth. We're very involved with our Honda Jet Owners and Pilots Association, and so hopefully that a lot of prospective buyers do go onto the HOPA website forum and ask questions about.
What's the website address?
It's hjOPA.org.
Okay, and then the citation word is similar. It's the Citation Jet Pilots Association.
Yes.
And that's citationjetpilots.org.
Yes.
I think .com.org. And a lot of times I'll see on the CJP colloquial, the Citation Jet Pilots Association website, we'll see other aircraft owners talk about buyer acquisition consultants that they've worked with.
Yes.
So there's a lot of transparency that you can see there. And one of the things I included in my book, which you can also find on my website at thejetagent.com, I put in my book a checklist of items that you can ask a prospective acquisition consultant. So, like, what's your background?
Right.
Is your background selling stocks, or is it, were you flying, citations or maintaining them, or so what's your background?
Right.
You're a part of like the IATA. So we mentioned IATA a couple times. It's the International Aircraft Dealers Association.
Yes.
That's an organization where all of the broker members have taken a pledge around the code of ethics and how business will be done ethically. There's also, while we don't have a lot of certifications in aviation, there's a certified aviation manager.
Yes.
That the National Business Aviation Association, runs that certification. So if you have that certification, that's another good sign. If someone's been maintaining airplanes, flying the same airplanes, I think that's also some other good ways, right, to vet someone. Are they active in the owner organizations? Right. Like you're active in the Honda group, I'm active in the Citation group.
Right.
So it's
building that, like you said, word of mouth, building that trust that we're establishing ourselves within our communities as the go-to broker or acquisition agent or trusted advisor, really for our particular specialty.
So when someone buys an airplane, that at some point they're also going to sell an airplane. Should we talk a little bit about that?
Yes. I always say I call owners all the time when it's slow. I like to just pick up the phone and start calling owners and just checking in on how are you doing. And I always say it's kind of like a bittersweet, because I'm obviously very loyal to the Honda Jet, and that's my passion. And so I want to hear that you love your Honda Jet and you want to keep it forever. That makes me so happy. But at the same time, if you want to sell it, great.
Right. Missions change, right?
Yes, and they do. And Honda is coming out with a larger airplane. It's going to be a little bit, but we're hoping that they're going to announce something actually this week about maybe an update. They're coming out with a larger airplane. Like the Citations obviously have the CJs, you can move all the way up, and it's so convenient that there's the same 525 type rating, so you've got that booked. I mean, we lose deals a lot to M2 owners who are looking to maybe buy the Honda Jet, but they're like, oh, I think maybe the CJ3 Plus maybe makes a little more sense. I already type rated and I know the airplane and I'm loyal to Cessna, and so we compete, but I think friendly.
Yes.
So Honda is coming out with a larger airplane. Hopefully, like I said, we'll hear something more about it this week. But we're hoping that they are, like you said, their missions changed and they're going to need to sell their Honda Jet. And sometimes they move into a Phenom 300, or sometimes they move into a CJ4, or they go to a Challenger. So we are a fan of customers keeping their Honda Jet, but also selling it, and that's what we're here for. And so. And I think that's actually really important to maybe discuss is choosing the right broker to sell your airplane. I can't tell you how many times I see a Honda Jet pop up on the market for sale with like Joe Schmo's aircraft company, and then it's funny, they know nothing about the air. You touched on this. The specs are incorrect on their listing. I saw a Honda Jet the other day listed, and it said it's Williams engines, and it's on the Williams Tap Blue program. And I'm like, those are not the engines on a Honda Jet. What are you doing? And I feel so bad for the seller, because I'm like, first of all, how did you land on Joe Schmo's aircraft company? And secondly, do you know that you're in the wrong? Your broker doesn't even know the engines on your airplane. So let's start there. Yeah. And so no, I think that's highly important when you're going to sell an airplane. Again, maybe this whole AI thing will figure itself out to where you can Google and we will come up, because if you choose the wrong broker, you're really hurting yourself, and you could lose a lot of money as well. Your broker may tell you that this is what you're going to get for the airplane, and this is the highest price, and this is what it's worth, and that's incorrect. But really, all your broker wants to do is sell your airplane as quickly as possible so they can cash in on their commission and move on. But they don't actually have your best interests in mind.
Well, let's dive into that a little bit. So the research. So yes. I don't know. Maybe we should dive into this a little bit. Most brokers that specialize in particular aircraft models have a research team that is researching what the airplanes in that particular model market are selling for.
Yes.
They're keeping a close tab on competing airplanes that are on the market and what offers have been coming in on those airplanes.
Yes.
And so if you own a Citation M2, let's bring that up, I suppose, since it's one of my favorite airplanes.
Yes.
If you are thinking about selling your Citation M2, you can choose between a generalist broker that sells anything from piston airplanes to G650s, or you can choose someone that buys and sells a lot of that airplane. And I think there's pros and cons to both. There's a lot more pros when you use a specialist. So specifically, like on my team, I have 2 aircraft researchers that are constantly keeping on top of what M2s are selling, what they're selling for, the M2s that are on the market, what type of offers they're getting. Yes. So that if an owner calls me that has an M2 and they're just thinking maybe I'm going to upgrade this year or next.
Sure, right. I'm just I'm feeling it out.
Yeah, feeling it out. What do you think my airplane would sell for in this market?
Right.
I can really pin it down pretty well. And not only that, I probably have a buyer for the airplane.
Right.
I was looking last night. There's about 40 M2s on the market right now. And sometimes that that will freak a generalist broker out.
Yeah.
Yes,
because it will.
Because they don't understand how fluid and how much turnover we have in the M2 market.
Yes.
It's that M2 is a very transitory airplane, meaning it's a great first or second jet for someone, especially someone who's a buyer who also is a pilot.
Right.
They get their time in an airplane that's, sub $5 million for insurance, hull value, whatever, and then they move into the airplane that's probably their long-term airplane. Right. But generalists don't understand that. And they don't understand the nuances between, the airplanes that have the original G3000 hardware, for example, versus the NG, and that the value difference when valuing. And so
that's a huge point, yes.
Yeah, so what kind of challenges do you see in the Honda Jet market where generalists are selling the Honda Jet?
Oh man, I could probably talk about this for a while, so I'll try to be brief. But yes, you brought up some excellent points. The Honda Jet it has 5 different models of the Honda Jet now, and so Honda has been very successful at innovating pretty quickly because it'll be 10 years next year really that they've been delivering the airplane. They're on their 5th rendition of it. There are so many generalist brokers I have noticed who don't understand the different models, like you mentioned, and the upgrades and what this Honda Jet offers versus what this Honda Jet APMG offers, or the Honda Jet Elite or Elite S, and now the Elite 2. And so they are they're uneducated, really. They're not specializing in the airplane, and that can hurt both buyer and seller quite quickly. You mentioned that you're on tap with the market. Yeah, we do produce a monthly market report for our customers. So we produce it for our customers that have hired us to sell their airplane. So when they hire us, we produce a market report that shows them every Honda Jet on the market, what they're asking, what they if the main specs, like are you on an airframe and an engine program, yes or no. And then how many hours, and then most importantly, days on the market too, because sometimes the asking price is really high, and it's like, that's great, but you've been on the market for 572 days. So clearly there is something wrong with the way that you're not selling.
Aspirational pricing is probably a whole nother conversation we could fill an hour with.
That we totally could. So so we produce that to show our sellers, yes, I know you want to ask the highest price of this market report. You want to be right there at the top, but I need you to understand that airplane that's asking 5.9 has been on the market for 3.5 years. Yeah. So but maybe that's a fake listing. And so you also mentioned, it can be a little overwhelming to see 40 M2s on the market, but I would venture to guess, because the Honda Jet, and maybe it's similar, some of them are fake listings. Some of them aren't really for sale. They're aspirational, like you said. They've been on the market for years because they're wondering if someone is going to overpay them for their airplane, and if not, they're just going to continue owning it. But it's on the market, making it look like there's so many airplanes on the market, when in reality, if you hire a trusted person who understands or specializes in this market, you will get a much more clear view of who's actually for sale, what real sellers are listing, and what the real prices are. So I do find that general brokers, like I said, I hate Joe Schmo's aircraft company, they don't understand the market of the Honda Jet, or they don't understand the market of the Citations, and they just go off of whatever's on the market and that kind of the asking prices that they can try to understand, but they don't have the insider knowledge, I guess, of someone who specializes in that aircraft type and knows the market and knows what's actually selling and what they're actually selling for.
Let's pivot to probably one last topic. And how about we talk about off-market, pre-market, and what that means, right?
Yes.
This is the land of opportunity in my book, because, this year, I would say, I'm thinking about this, just about every deal I've done this year, except for I have a live listing right now that I couldn't move pre-market, but just about every other deal, every other deal I've done this year, the plane's either been sold before I brought it to market, or I acquired it from my client and it never hit the market.
That you've been doing a lot of those. That's amazing.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of those this year, and so I think that's an area of value where an aircraft acquisition consultant or a broker that specializes in that market, brings to the table. So let's define what this is a little bit. Because there's also in our industry, there's a lot of discussion about, oh, well, off market is, it's, if someone, I've heard brokers say, or even people not aircraft brokers, but in our industry say, if I hear someone has an off market airplane, I just believe it's a phantom listing and it doesn't really exist.
Yeah.
And let's look at my closings this year, and, and we'll contest that a wee bit.
Yes.
So off market. Why are airplanes off market, and what does that mean? So an off market airplane could be someone that signed a listing agreement with either one of us, with any of us, and we just haven't scheduled the photographer yet.
Right.
Come take the photos.
We have that going on right now.
Yeah, exactly, right. And all the top photographers and the top photographers that I use,
yes,
it takes me a week to 10 days to get on their schedule.
Right.
For them to go travel to where they're taking the photos, right? Because they're traveling, they're in Fort Lauderdale one day, they're in Salt Lake the next, they're crisscrossing the country taking photos of all of these different airplanes.
Right, exactly.
It's one day an airplane. And then they have their post-production where they're taking their hundreds of photos and
it takes
taking them down to 20 for us. And then they're putting their videos together because we also ask for videos and in some cases Matterport walkthrough as well. So off-market could mean pre-market. So let's talk about pre-market, right? It's an airplane that you have a signed agreement with the seller to sell the airplane. But you just haven't put it on any online listing sites.
Right.
Yet.
You're waiting.
You're waiting.
Right. We have one right now that's it's in maintenance still, so we can't take a photo shoot because it's in maintenance.
You're right.
So we're waiting.
That happens a lot. That
Right.
happened to my CJ2 Plus. I listed a couple weeks ago that exact thing. We signed it, but we had to wait 3 weeks because of the document 10.
Right.
It just wasn't going to take pictures of the engine cowlings off. No. And then there's off market, and the off market is legitimate off-market airplanes. So one of the off-market airplanes I found this summer was I had an M2 owner who was looking to move into a CJ3 Plus, and none of the airplanes that were on the market fit exactly what he wanted. So he wanted his company color scheme, he wanted a certain equipment in the cockpit, he wanted a certain pedigree, age, and a certain budget. And so I reached out to my network and then ended up finding a Cody Honeyman. Had one that was going to be coming a couple months down the road, and that aligned with my client wanting to sell his M2, and so we were able to put something together very quickly. Never came to market. That story, I mean, rather than waste time, we would tell that story over and over again.
Right.
Okay, and then there's the off market where I'm talking to an aircraft owner, and they're calling in about my listing, maybe. So I have a CJ2 Plus listing. They're talking to me about their listing. They said, I'm going to buy a CJ2 Plus this year, and I'm going to be moving from my M2. Okay, what are you going to be doing with your M2?
Right.
Well, I'm going to need to sell it.
Yeah.
Guess what? That airplane is an off-market opportunity.
Exactly.
Right?
Right.
Okay, so I know that if they find a CJ2 Plus, this M2's for sale.
The M2's
so
for
if we can
sale,
help
right.
them achieve both of those things. Okay, so that's off-market.
Yes.
Let's talk about the other off-market opportunities. And I'm talking about not from brokers. So first of all, we've talked about all the things that can go wrong and all of these things. But for the vast majority of brokers in the United States, they're professional brokers. They're very, very good at what they do. There's just differences, right? Some are generalists, some are specialists. Depending on what you're looking for, right, there's someone out there to help you. Middlemen. We talk about middlemen.
Yeah. Let's do it.
What is a middleman in your view?
I mean, a middleman to me would be, somebody who's providing like static noise to a buyer or a seller that isn't educated information. It's I think, we talked about like the Google or something where they're not providing real, actual educated information to the buyer or the seller about the decisions they're about to make on a very large purchase or sale, for that matter. So no, I agree with you. There's the off market can be a little bit complex, but you have to work it in the right way. And I think that's what you and I are our companies, our brokerage firms are specialized entirely in a certain product that we know extremely well. So we're able to be that educated person to a buyer or a seller that otherwise wouldn't have given them the full access to the information. So we do off-market deals often when, like you said, we learn about someone who wants to buy. In the HondaJet world, it's interesting. We've had maybe not half, but a good 40% of our, because like I mentioned, the HondaJet has innovated itself so frequently that we have loyal customers who bought a classic HondaJet, and then 2 years later, they want to buy the next version of the airplane that just came out, the Elite. So if they're calling me about an Elite and I know they have a classic, then it's like, all right, well, if you're buying this Elite, even not from me, I know your classic's for sale, so I can go shop it around. And oftentimes I'm able to, like you said, actually find a buyer for it before it even hits the market, because I know the buyers, and the buyers know me, and they know Global Elite Aviation, and they know that we specialize in the HondaJet. So I'm able to have that network of buyers and then find that off-market opportunity, whether it be a current owner or just another listing or airplane that I know of that is willing to sell, and we're able to actually connect buyer and seller before it ever hits the market.
So from the middleman description, for me, is someone who does not work for the buyer and does not work for the seller.
Yes.
And they're working for themselves.
Yes.
Right? As opposed to us, we're engaged by one or the other. We're engaged by the buyer, we're engaged by the seller, and we have fiduciary duty to one or the other.
Right? Correct.
So let's talk about some of the dangers of middlemen. I mean, besides what you've touched on so aptly, which is they don't know anything about airplanes most of the time, right?
Yes.
When there's a middleman involved in a deal who's not engaged by the buyer or the seller, that person is making an unknown amount of money in the middle of a deal.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So in our industry, it's called a back-to-back transaction.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, there are good back-to-backs where there's full transparency. Both parties know what's going on. And I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about where there's a middleman in the middle, no allegiance to anyone.
Yes.
No transparency. The middleman tells the buyer, hey, I have this airplane for sale. The middleman tells the seller of the airplane, hey, I have a buyer for you on this airplane.
Right.
Buys this airplane for one amount, puts how many hundreds of thousands of dollars in the middle, and then neither party knows what's going on.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because, yes, I see this in our industry. And speaking of the unregulated, and, IATA is, the International Aircraft Dealers Association. There's a code of ethics that we all sign. Literally, you actually have to sign the code of ethics. It's written, and then there's a place for a signature, and you can't join IATA without signing it. So we have all physically signed it. So I'm assuming, and I hope that all IATA certified brokers are following this code of ethics. But there are many brokers that are not certified and that are not following this code of ethics and are doing these back-to-backs, as you mentioned. And it's just, like I said earlier, it's so hard, just discerning sometimes, like when I see an airplane for sale with Joe Schmo's Aircraft Shop, or when I see a back-to-back happen, and I know that both buyer and seller got essentially, excuse my language, but they got screwed. They didn't know. So this back-to-back middleman, as you mentioned, said, this is all you're going to get for your airplane, and this is it. And then they told the buyer, this is what you need to pay for it. And there's a $500,000 or more gap that the middleman is profiting on and deceiving both seller and buyer. Yeah. And it's like I said, it's disheartening. It's that, we both have integrity, like we discussed, and it's really disappointing.
It's really the number one reason, I think, for someone to hire a professional broker to buy or sell your airplane for you. Because, look, I get it. Sometimes I'll have a conversation with a prospective buyer or an aircraft owner and talking about buying for them or selling their airplane.
Yeah.
We get around to the conversation about what our fees are.
Yeah.
And our fees are always less than the cost of a hidden back-to-back every single time.
Absolutely.
But you're getting the benefit of someone working for you, someone who's there looking out for your best interest, making sure that you're getting the best possible deal on your airplane, whether you're buying it or you're selling it, and overseeing the pre-buy facility, overseeing the closing aspects, and playing project manager for the entire team, whether you're getting financing, your insurance broker, and not to mention helping you with managing, finding either a pilot, helping you with who's going to be managing flying the airplane if it's not you yourself, or if you're a pilot, helping you through that training process. So there's so many value aspects I think that people don't really see. They see the engagement agreement and they see the fee on there, and just say, well, somebody emailed me and said they have a buyer for me. I did watch one time, though, where I did see that exact situation, and a person that didn't want to sign with me ended up getting hurt.
Yeah.
And I didn't have the courage to call them afterwards, and I just felt like it would be a little bit too much like I was, no, I didn't want to do that.
Yeah, I've been there.
But I saw it on JetNet, and I went, yeah. They got burned, and they didn't realize they got burned. And if they just hired me for a fraction of what that middleman ended up getting in the middle,
yes,
they would have made more money.
And it is a fraction. You are correct.
And had someone working for them. So
that's a great point. You mentioned it because I should have. There was more to say earlier about all the steps to take. Like you mentioned, like we don't just it's insurance. It's finding pilots. It's getting you into training. Sometimes there's a wait list for our simulators. And so it's all those steps to take. It's the whole package of hiring a specialist to help you buy an airplane that is going to help you through all of those steps. Tax attorneys, legal attorneys to make sure that the purchase agreement is actually, there's transactions that happen on casual handshakes, and then sometimes those work, and sometimes they completely explode. And so it is actually very important to have a document in place for the purchase inspection or purchase agreement. But yes, no, I completely agree. It's there's the value of our fee, and sometimes I've had, speaking of, so far it has not been an IATA certified broker, but I've had a customer tell me, well, so and so is willing to do it for less.
Yes,
and I said, well, okay, but how are they going to do it? Like, do they know that your airplane has GE engines, not Williams engines? And the other day we had a seller that was doing the same thing, was wanting to negotiate the fee because someone else was willing to do it for less, and that same person had a Honda Jet on the market for over 2 years that they hadn't sold yet. So I had to bring that to this seller's attention. Do you know that they're going to do it for less, but they can't sell the current Honda Jet they have? So you could pay less and have the same service, or you could go with a specialist.
Someone with a record of selling the airplanes, and that's,
of selling.
It's funny you mentioned that. I just had Sage Agency in Las Vegas do a new website for me that, in fact, we're here in their studio today. Yes. Because we're here for this convention with NBAA. And one of the things I added on the new website was just a comparison of every airplane we've sold and how many days on market, because I was curious.
Right.
How many days on market it took us to sell an airplane versus what the average was.
Yes. And
with every single airplane except for one, because it had a tricky pre-buy situation that took longer than we expected, we were like between 56% faster, 56 and 42% faster than the average days on market for all of those airplanes that we sold. So I put them on the website just because I thought this is good to know.
That is a great idea, and that's real documented information.
Real documented information.
That a potential seller should be paying attention to. That's an excellent idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, we pride ourselves as well on being able to sell them faster and for hopefully the value price that you're supposed to get for the airplane, because we're knowledgeable. So when a seller or buyer comes in and wants to negotiate and haggle, we stand firm on what the airplane's value is. Yeah. And we don't just tell our sellers, you know what, this is the best you're going to get.
Yeah.
And you just close, and I'm going to move on because I don't actually care about what your bottom line.
You know what I think it is? I think it is you and I have a certain pride in winning, right?
Yes.
And we know if we do evaluation at the beginning, this is what it's going to sell for and this is how long it's going to certain and there's a certain pride in
accomplishing that,
right? It's like
winning,
we know our
winning.
We know our stuff, and there's a certain pride in doing that. And obviously, we want to do the best for our clients, but there's There is a little bit. There's some winning.
I think so. I think we're a little bit competitively wanting to win because we pride ourselves on success and accomplishment.
Exactly.
And I think that's a great value.
Michelle, this has been so great catching up with you and talking to you about all things aircraft brokerage acquisition today.
Oh, thank you so much. Yes, this has been fantastic. Thank you again for inviting me here. I'm so excited to be here, and this was a lovely conversation, as always, with you.
Yeah, you as well.
Oh, fantastic.
Thanks.
Thank you.